In this video, Tom and I will teach you how to play the game Live Free or Die. This is a really quick game to pick up, and the rules are just 4 pages long.
That's right, Greg, and if 4 pages is too long for you, there's a quick reference sheet at the back of the rules that'll get you started. Last week, we used Live Free or Die to play our Brandywine wargame with the American Battlefield Trust. If you haven't watched that replay yet, you definitely should.
The intended scale of this game is designed for you and your friends to play any of the major battles of the Revolution. So not only Brandywine, but Bunker Hill, the Battle of Princeton, Guilford Courthouse, you name it.
Let's get into it. To play, you'll need a copy of the rules and some miniatures.
A tape measure would help.
Our figures are 10mm scale, but this game can be played in any scale you want. 6mm or 15mm figures would work just fine.
They would, Tom, but I think that we should confess our club has been slowly falling in love with 10mm. Half a dozen guys in the club painted hundreds and hundreds of 10mm Pendraken figures from their AWI range, and it is extensive, including Hessians and French. So if you're new to the period, honestly, it is a great place to start. For a lot of scenarios in Live Free or Die, you're going to need at least 50 bases of infantry, a few guns, and a few officers. You could assemble a good starter army for about $75, maybe $80 from Pendraken, which makes it a pretty attractive entry point.
We use 1-inch square bases for our miniatures, but if you're using anything close to that, you'll be fine.
A group of bases are formed together to make a regiment. Here's a regiment in line, a regiment in double line, a regiment in column, and another in loose order skirmish formation. These are the only formation types in the game. You'll also see cavalry, artillery, and leaders.
The number of bases in a regiment depends on their historical strength at a given battle. A base in this game represents 50 to 75 men, so you could see regiments with as few as 3 bases, or maybe up to 10. There is no minimum or maximum unit size. It's based on historical research for that particular battle.
And Tom, we researched quite a few battles, not just Brandywine.
Greg, let's take folks through a sample turn. Every turn follows this sequence of steps. Step 1 is the command phase, where you issue orders to your regiments.
To understand how command and control works in this game, let's look at the order of battle for the British Army at Germantown. This is one of the 3 historical scenarios that you get in the rule booklet. Here we go. You can see the British force includes a number of regiments organized into brigades. General Howe is the overall commander at the top of the page. As a leader, note that he has the number 4 next to his portrait. That gives him 4 command points every turn. He also has 2 stars, and down below him you'll see that Lord Cornwallis is rated as a 3-star lieutenant. Lieutenants in this game are basically sub-commanders. The stars for each leader or lieutenant are extremely important because that gives you a number of bonus dice that you can use in virtually every phase of the turn.
Right, and we'll get into those star values as we go through a turn. To start the turn at the command phase, the British player at Germantown could roll 5 6-sided dice because Howe has 2 stars and Cornwallis adds another 3. Every D6 result of 5 or better, the British player gains an extra command point for that turn.
And that is important because you use those command points to move units, issue charges, and rally. More command points is always better.
That's right. If I'm playing the British at Germantown, I'm going to roll 5 dice, looking for 5s to be success. Alright, so I picked up 1 success, and if I add that to Howe's base leader number of 4, that gets me 5 command dice for the turn. Now it's time for me to spend those points. Here's my menu of options as a player. I could move an entire brigade for 1 point, or move an individual regiment for a point. This is why it's valuable to keep regiments of the same brigade close together. I can also spend a point to rally or spend 2 or 3 points to issue a charge.
Charges in this game are pretty expensive, and that represents how hard it was historically to get your troops to rush the enemy with cold steel.
Right, there were actually very few examples in the war of literal hand-to-hand combat. Bunker Hill is a notable exception, but for the most part, troops stood off and engaged in close-range volleys. Both players in the game issue their orders simultaneously, and we like to set out the dice next to the units as an aid to remembering.
Step 2 in the turn is initiative. This is pretty simple. Tom and I each are going to roll 1d6, and the high roll wins.
Step 3 is leader actions. Here, each side can attach leaders or lieutenants to a regiment to add bonuses later in the turn. This is also when you conduct any rally actions you spent a command point to do so. Let's talk about rallying. There's no die roll. You can remove the number of DMZs based on the star value of that lieutenant or commander. So Howe at Germantown, as a 2-star leader, could remove 2 DMZs from a regiment if he did a rally. Quick and easy.
Tom, I guess we better mention what DMZs actually are. These are demoralization markers that you're going to place on your units, and they'll accumulate throughout the game. So they represent disorganization, disorder, casualties, deserters, all of the above.
Right, it's just a catch-all concept for your units, your regiments losing combat effectiveness.
Right, and if you pile up 5 of them on a unit, you have to remove an entire base from the unit as a casualty. So this is how guys get killed in the game.
Step 4 is charges. Any regiments with a charge order now try to carry out their charges. This is really important because it happens before firing or other movement.
And charges are not simultaneous. The side with the initiative conducts their charges first.
We've already noted that charges are expensive to order, but they're also risky to implement as well. You have to roll 2d6, and you'll make it that number of inches to see if you can make contact with the enemy.
And whether you make it or not, the defender still gets to take closing fire as you make your charge. And as the defender here, I would roll 1d6 for each base in the regiment. That's a total of 4 bases, giving me 4 dice. Every result of 5 or better is a hit, which would place 1 DMZ on Tom's regiment.
As the attacker, if I fail to reach the target, my unit moves just as far as it can. If I do make contact with the enemy, we then place those units and resolve it later in the turn.
I really like this mechanic because as we move on to firing and movement in the turn, you really aren't sure as a player how that close combat is going to resolve.
Absolutely, I like that level of uncertainty as well. Next, we continue the firing phase. At this point, any unit in range can conduct shooting. Artillery can fire up to 20 inches or 30 inches, depending on whether they are rated as a field gun or a light grasshopper gun.
Infantry fire 6 inches for muskets or 10 inches for rifles. Firing is simultaneous, so it doesn't matter in which order Tom and I resolve our shots. And this is very simple to do. Once again, you just get to roll 1d6 per base firing, and a 5 or better is a hit. If a defender is in cover, like behind a wall or in the woods, you need a 6 to hit. Everything in this game is based on 6-sided dice. That is all that you will ever need.
Infantry can do a hasty fire as Greg described, but formed lines can also conduct volley fire, which allows you to throw 2 dice per base in that firing phase. It's very deadly.
I just remembered. It's very deadly.
Yeah, you know what, Greg? It's very deadly. It's very deadly. If you do volley fire, we place some smoke on the regiment as a reminder. This is important because units that conduct volley fire cannot move later in the turn.
I love this trade-off because it does make for some tough decisions as a player. You really do have to decide, do I want to pour firepower into the enemy, or do I want to try and preserve my ability to maneuver later in the turn? I should also point out that attached leaders and lieutenants add their star rating to firing as well. So if I had a 3-star officer attached to this unit, he would let me roll 3 more dice during my shooting, and that can be a really nice fire bonus.
As you score hits on the enemy in firing, you place DMZ markers next to that unit. This can be anything you have ready to hand: beads, chits, markers.
So here are 2 types of markers that we use a lot in this club. These are just little red plastic chits. I'm not even sure where we bought these, but Tom, I really like the blood markers that you have that have little numbers written on them.
That's right, Greg. These are great. These come from Great Escape Games, and they are produced generically for a number of their rule sets, but I found them very useful. After we resolve all the firing, it's time for movement. Units with initiative will move first, but remember, only units that had an order at the top of the turn may do so.
The movement rules are very easy. You can move anywhere in your front 180-degree arc. Infantry in line move 6 inches, and if they're in column formation, they can move 9 inches. Artillery is 6 or 9 inches, depending on whether you have field guns or light grasshopper guns.
Now, if I want to move this unit to the rear or to the side, that's at half speed, and I have to place a DMZ on the unit to represent some disorganization in the ranks. If I want to make a formation change, maybe moving this unit from line to column, that also incurs 1 DMZ. You have to manage your troops carefully.
Movement through woods or over rough ground also incurs a DMZ, so that does make terrain very important to navigate for your troops.
That's right, and when we're done moving all of our troops, then we come back to any charges we had at the beginning of the game, and now we need to resolve those and see what the impact is going to be. Let's use this as an example. I have 6 bases of infantry charging Greg's 4 bases with a lieutenant attached. We are each going to roll a bunch of dice based on the list of possible modifiers. As usual, we'll be hoping to roll 5s or better to score hits in combat.
Let's start with my modifiers, Tom. I get 1 die for every 2 bases in the combat, rounded down. So with 4 bases, that'll give me 2 dice to start. I'm defending minor terrain, this fence, which gives me another die. I also have that 2-star lieutenant attached, which is 2 more dice.
Okay, I have 6 bases, which is 3 dice for mass. My regiment is a better class than yours, so I pick up 3 dice because we have a 1 class difference between us. If you were a 4th class unit like militia, I'd get 6 bonus dice here, but sadly you're not. Next, I get 3 more dice because I did order a British bayonet charge at the start of the turn with my command points. And finally, I'm going to lose 1 die because I currently have more DMZs than you.
So there we have it. I have a total of 5 dice. Tom is going to be rolling 8. We're each going to roll simultaneously and compare results. Every 5 or 6 is a success. Let's see what happens.
I have 2 more successes than Greg. So when we look at the results table, we're going to apply that differential to the outcome. In my case, I won by 2, which means I suffer 2 hits and halt.
And I have lost by 2, which is a driven back result. I take 2 DMZ, and I have to remove a full base, and I have to retreat. This is not a good day for the Continentals, and it's actually about to get worse, because some more bad stuff is about to happen to my boys here. Anytime you lose a base in this game, your regiment takes an immediate morale test, and the difficulty of that test is based on the training or discipline of the unit. As you can see here, the better your troops are, the more dice that you get to roll, and all you ever need to pass a morale test is 1 success. Like everything in Live Free or Die, a success is a roll of 5 or 6. But remember, my regiment that just lost this combat is only 3rd class, so they are only going to get to roll 2d6. If I get at least 1 success, I will pass my test and nothing else will happen. But if I don't get that success, I'm going to have to continue retreating back to the rear. But remember, Tom, I do have that 2-star lieutenant attached, so guess what that means?
That means you get to roll 2 extra dice, Greg.
Yes, I am going to add 2 more dice to my pool. So you can see how this is a consistent mechanic in the game. Having these leaders with the star rating is really, really valuable, and you never quite seem to have enough of them.
Okay, so you passed that, Greg, but there's one more bit of business.
Yes, an unfortunate bit of business. If you lose a casualty in combat, your leader or lieutenant who is attached might be wounded or killed. So I did lose a base in that combat, and now I'm going to have to take a test. This is pretty simple. I'm going to roll 1d6, and if I roll a 1, that is really bad news. On a result of 1, I'm going to have to roll on this leader risk table that you can see, and it probably won't end well for our friend Anthony Wayne. All right, here we go. All right, Mad Anthony rolls a 3, which means he is fine. I do not have to roll on the leader risk table.
We should also point out that you're lucky you didn't have another unit right behind your troops who retreated from combat, because a friendly unit within 3 inches would have also accumulated another 3 DMZ if you ran through or by them within 3 inches.
That's right, these DMZ penalties for retreats sometimes can lead to cascading situations where an entire wing of your army might melt away with some bad luck.
That's exactly what happened historically at the Battle of Camden, when the rebel militia melted away in about 20 minutes.
All right, well, my army hasn't melted away quite yet. There is plenty more battle left to play, because we've only taken you guys through 1 sample turn of Live Free or Die.
That's right, but we're not quite at the last step, Greg. There's a final turn or final action of redressing ranks, and any units that are outside of 12 inches of an enemy unit could get a free rally.
Yeah.
And after that phase, yes, we've finished a full turn of the game. We would then go back to the top of the order for a new turn, rolling for bonus command points and issuing orders all over again.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this demo of Live Free or Die. It is quick, deadly, and it allows you and your friends to play all the famous battles of the war. Inside the rulebook, you'll find scenarios included for Princeton, Germantown, and Camden. They each have orders of battle, scenario rules, a map, and base labels if you want to use them.
And if you want even more battles, we have a scenario book called Victory or Death, which packs 10 scenarios into a monster PDF. The game and scenarios are all available at our website, littlewarstv.com. You can purchase them as a booklet or as a PDF.
Yes, the PDFs are $13 each, and the printed booklet that you see here is $17.76. $17.76. You see what we did there?
Guys, we want to be clear about the price. We're splitting the proceeds and donating to the American Battlefield Trust. So if you buy a copy of the game from us, you'll be supporting one of our favorite nonprofit organizations.
It's a win-win. You get a great game, and you get to support this channel, Little Wars TV, and you also get to support the American Battlefield Trust.
What's not to love? Go to littlewarstv.com and check out Live Free or Die. And if you enjoyed this video, please let us know in the comments below.
And if you haven't seen the Brandywine Wargame yet, you definitely don't want to miss that. Just click here.